Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
All right, well this time we're tackling air pollution, but with a twist.
Yeah, we're going deep on this one, specifically for folks in civil and environmental engineering.
Right, so if you're an engineer, this one's for you. And we're using this ebook as our guide. It's called Rudimentary Insight to Air Pollution for Civil and Environmental Engineers.
Kitschy, right.
Well, the title's straightforward, sure, but the content, it's packed with practical knowledge you can actually use.
Yeah.
Like on real projects.
And that's what we're all about here, getting into the stuff that matters.
Exactly. So let's get right to it. Why should air pollution matter to you as an engineer?
You know, that's actually one of the things I love about this book. It makes this really cool connection between these environmental concerns that can sometimes feel kind of abstract and the actual work that engineers do every single day.
So true. Okay, well, let's break it down. First things first. How does this ebook actually define air pollution?
It basically boils it down to, any substance that makes its way into the air, and messes with its natural balance.
Okay.
Think of it like, let's say you're designing a ventilation system for a building.
Right.
Your job isn't just to, move air around. You got to make sure you're filtering out all the nasty stuff, the pollutants that can really impact people's health, the folks inside that building.
Right. Makes sense.
So understanding what's actually in the air, like the composition of the air, the pollutants that are a threat, that becomes pretty darn crucial for an engineer.
Absolutely. So this book, it goes deep into where those pollutants are actually coming from, right? Like, I don't want to just list them all out, but were there any sources that, surprised you?
Honestly, it was really the sheer diversity of the sources. It's kind of mind-blowing. I mean, we all know about car emissions.
Of course.
But then you've got industrial processes, all the stuff happening in agriculture, and even natural events. Like, think about volcanic eruptions.
Oh, wow, yeah.
It really highlights how complex this problem is, especially for engineers, right? They've got to think about all these potential sources when they're designing solutions.
Yeah, because it's not just about where it's coming from, but what it is, right? Like the different types of pollutants. Does the book talk about that too?
Oh, absolutely. It breaks down all those different types, like particulate matter, nitrogen oxides, you've got your sulfur dioxide, and each one of those has its own, its own unique properties and impacts. Like, think about this. You're designing a bridge, right? Yeah. And it's near a busy highway.
Yeah.
You got to understand the types of pollutants coming from all those cars, like what's in that exhaust, how much of it is there, because that's going to play a huge role in picking the right materials for that bridge, stuff that can handle corrosion if you want it to last.
That's a perfect example. So the book, it focuses on something called criteria pollutants.
Yeah, those are the big ones.
Why are those so important for engineers specifically?
Well, think of them as the heavy hitters. They're the pollutants that have the biggest impact on everything, our health, the environment, you name it.
Makes sense.
And they're the ones that governments and all the regulatory folks really focus on. They often set specific standards for them. Like let's say you're designing a wastewater treatment plant.
Okay.
Understanding those criteria pollutants, things like nitrogen oxides, it's mission critical. You got to design that plant in a way that keeps those things from being released, because they contribute to all sorts of problems, like smog, and people in the community could end up with breathing issues.
So it's about really knowing those key pollutants and then designing systems that minimize their impact. So how do you measure this stuff? Because the book gets into that, right?
Oh, yeah, it gets into the practical side of things. Like, how do you actually measure those pollutant concentrations? And then there's this thing called the Air Quality Index, AQI.
AQI.
It's kind of like a translator almost.
Okay.
It takes all those complex measurements and turns them into a scale that anyone can understand. Tells you how clean or polluted the air is.
Right.
For engineers, that's crucial information.
So it's like a real-time snapshot of the air quality.
Yeah.
You know what you're working with. Okay, so we got the basics. But this book, it goes even further. It links air pollution to some pretty massive global problems, right?
It does. It connects it to things like acid rain, climate change, even those smoggy days we get in cities sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
The part about carbon dioxide and its role in global warming. That really got me thinking. As an engineer, imagine you're designing a bridge.
Okay.
You're not just thinking about, whether it'll stand up anymore. You're thinking about the materials you're using, the construction process, even the traffic that bridge is going to carry.
Right.
It all contributes to those CO2 emissions, which impacts, the planet's temperature. It's like, whole new dimension to engineering.
It's like the scope of what you need to consider has like exploded.
Totally.
What are some of the other big picture problems the ebook highlights?
Well, it dives into smog formation, both the photochemical kind, the stuff we see in cities,
right,
and industrial smog, which can be, a big issue in heavily industrialized areas. Let's say you're designing a transportation system for a city that's growing really fast. Well, understanding what causes smog, things like, vehicle emissions, industrial activity, that's crucial. You got to think about promoting public transportation, optimizing traffic flow, even things like green spaces, because those can actually help absorb some of those pollutants.
So it's about taking this knowledge of air pollution and using it to create solutions.
Exactly.
That go beyond just mitigating the negative. You're actually contributing to a healthier environment.
Exactly. That's the goal. Right.
That raises a really interesting question for our listeners. Knowing all this stuff about air pollution now and its implications, what are some innovative ways that civil and environmental engineers can use this knowledge, not just to reduce pollution, but to actually improve air quality in the future?
That's a good one.
Something to think about. And if you want to really dive deep, be sure to check out the ebook, Rudimentary Insight to Air Pollution for Civil and Environmental Engineers. It's full of insights that can really make a difference in your work.
I highly recommend it. It's a great resource.
Until next time.